At this time, I'm going to call our board meeting to session. It is August 20th, 2018. The time is 7:14. All board members are present except for Bettye Davis and Elisa Snelling. And Andy, oh, sorry, you're busy. Deena, would you lead us in the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deena. So the board welcomes public comments on agenda items, both action and non-action, as well as in general. We value public opinion as it both ensures that we remain aware of public thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and informs our decision-making process. We have a table up front and center with 2 seats and microphones available for testimony. When I call your name, you'll have 3 minutes. And if you look to the left, there'll be a clock there, and as it counts down to 0, we'd ask that you would stop. In order to provide equity, to all that would like to speak, the board asks that there be no clapping after testimony, as it may intimidate others wishing to testify with opposing opinions. Additionally, it's not our practice that board members answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is your time to speak and our time to listen. The board will consider all information shared by the public, and when deemed necessary, issues raised in testimony will be referred to administration for follow-up. And at this point, the approval of agenda, I would like to, I believe there's a board member that wants. Usually when you read the consent agenda, he'll pull it. Oh, okay. All right. So approval agenda. Any dissension on the agenda? No. Okay. At this time, we're taking public testimony. And if I can call Jared Wilkie and Antoniette Brown, Antoniette Brown, and both of you could come up and take the microphones. And Jared, you'll go first. Antoinette, is that right? Yeah, okay. Jared, when you see the, can we restart it? We're going to restart it, Jared. Okay. You can begin.
Hello, our names are Jared Wilkie and Antoinette Brown. We are here tonight to speak on behalf of ourselves and our fellow ANSEP Accelerated High School 9th and 10th grade peers. This morning on August 20th, 2018 should have been a scene of parents taking first day pictures, sending their kids off to the bus, or dropping them off at their school. My fellow students and I should have joined our friends for our first period at our local high school, prepared to start the year off with a bang. Instead, a majority of ANSEP Accelerated High School 9th and 10th graders were informed that they have been disenrolled from ASD. To our surprise, we were informed that we could not be dual enrolled at both ASD and ANSEP. Majority of us had sat through and waited in long lines during the in-person registration last week due to the fact that a majority of us had attended in Marsett Borough School District. ANSEP Accelerated High School had partnered with Marsett Borough School District, and the program is being housed and supported at Marsett Career Tech in Palmer. My mom had told me that the 11th and 12th grade ANSEP Accelerated High School students are able to dual enroll through the middle college program. I feel that 9th and 10th graders have proven themselves capable of success by already attending a year through the ANSEP Accelerated High School program. In order to initially attend, my fellow students and myself had attended a summer preparatory session. At the end of the session, as an 8th grader, I was required to take the ALEX and ACCUE placement test and scored the same as any incoming college freshman. Tonight I would like to just ask why my educational career path with ASD is not as important just because I'm not an 11th or 12th grader, and why my fellow peers are being penalized with unexcused absences that are not enrolled. Thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah. Do you have anything to say? No. Okay, thank you. And then we have another speaker. Sorry, I put my glasses on. And
can't hear you. We don't hear what you're saying.
Your speaker's out.
oh, sorry about that. New speakers, old person. So we have Fiona Barlow that we're getting on the line now.
Fiona? Yeah, hi, this is Katy calling from the school board meeting, and I'm going to put you on hands free. You have 3 minutes for the testimony, okay?
Okay, you can begin.
Can you hear us, Fiona?
Hello?
Yes, can you begin? You can begin your testimony.
Hi. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about the suicide prevention programs that are offered to our students that are in the district and teachers that are working with our students. It kind of came after I looked around a little bit that there isn't really too much that's provided for our teachers outside of a suicide prevention training that is only required every 4 years. And some high schools offer the You Are Not Alone program, which started at West High School, and I think that is awesome, especially as it's peer-based. But with Alaska having such a high rate of suicides per capita as compared to the rest of the United States, it was kind of concerning to know that our school districts and our teachers aren't really equipped with too much besides the previously stated training every 4 years. Now the state does have a State of Alaska suicide prevention plan that is 4 years called Recasting the Net. That's promoting suicide prevention through wellness promotion. And I just kind of wanted to see if the district had any plans with incorporating this statewide suicide prevention plan into their curriculum or into their training with their teachers outside of the training that's only required every 4 years. It's important to me because not only am I a student who has graduated from the Anchorage School District, but I've also lost friends with suicide while attending the Anchorage School District, and I think that with equipping our teachers and our students with the proper tools to face suicide, which is something that is prevalent in everybody's life. Everybody at some point experiences hopelessness, and that hopelessness can eventually lead to depression and suicidal ideation. So with that, I think all of our students and teachers should be equipped with the tools to combat that and to successfully prevent suicide and to also maybe help their peers that may be experiencing it. But that's all I have to share for today.
Okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to testify before we move on? Yes, sir. Yeah. If you take a seat and give us your name, please.
Thanks very much. 3 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for confirming it. I got a timer too.
Okay. And if you,
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I represent myself. I live in the Macasunda Valley. I follow the public process. The public process is not appropriately a decision made by the governing body. It's more like the public interest.
I audit the public process. I'm known to be quite a few meetings over the years. Also, I monitor the elections in Anchorage. That since 2012, every election in Anchorage I declared illegitimate. Okay, and I'll give you an example of the most recent election that was a special election in Anchorage. There was not a location where you can physically go in and vote unless it was outside the district of the representative. You had to go to Warehouse Avenue. I was at the meeting at the election canvass board Friday night. There were 2 of them there. And I saw a shell game dealing with their review of the ballots for that particular election. Not all members of the commission looked at those envelopes, ballots, because they were being disqualified. That's an example of my work I do. But let's go more personal here to your meeting. One thing is, as far as public, they need to be able to get access to information of the meeting. There should be a packet available here, a written packet. You shouldn't shortchange the public and say that they can get it online, particularly the way IT is working like out in the valley right now. We didn't see a packet for the Borough Assembly meeting online until today for tomorrow's meeting. And it's been very frustrating for me to monitor what's going on here. But remember, these electronics is a cost to the individual, and whose salary they have to have this kind of equipment, and they could be down. You should have hard copies here. I understand that you used to have hard copies here, but you changed it. Now realize the school budget, all fairness, is huge, but the cost of what I'm saying to you is shouldn't go in and cut cost in that area about the material for people to be able to be connected. And the idea of people being able to connect to the public is that if the process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. But most important too is when you make decisions, if the process is done right, the public will be more comfortable with the decision and supportive of those decisions. But when you do things like not having packets in the meeting, and myself being told, you can get a packet, but you have to call in advance and we'll prepare it prior to that, contact before the meeting, that's not fair. But I do, in the closing comment, I do notice, and you correct it, that you've got 2 times for people to speak outside of public hearings, and that's great because the Matsu Borough has a policy that you either have to do at the beginning of the meeting or the end of the meeting, not both. And that's what goes on there. And in the Anchorage Assembly meetings, 2 meetings of the roughly 5 I attended recently, there's a place for public comment at the end to speak, but they use the words on only items that's on the agenda, but they run the clock. They run the clock so that you cannot get public to speak. And that happened recently. It's happened twice. Thank you. My time's up.
Thank you. And did we have anybody else that wanted to testify? Go ahead, please state your name. And you'll need to turn that mic on. You see? There you go. Good job.
Hi. I just wanted to say, as a parent...
Your name, please.
Oh, sorry. My name is Sarah Brown.
Kamala Melchoff.
I just wanted to address, I don't know if it was very clear if you completely understood what the kids were trying to say. My daughter is currently a freshman. Last year, she got up every morning at 4:30 and she rode a bus from UAA to Matsu to go to the Acceleration High School out there. She was not allowed to do sports. She didn't have gym. She was under the impression this school year, as I enrolled her, as we got to East High School at 7:30 a.m. We did not leave East High School until noon. I enrolled her for her 1 gym class. Then I received a phone call saying that because I was only enrolling her in 1 class because she is going to be taking 3 classes at UAA, she was not eligible to go to school there. I think this is a disgrace. My daughter has proven herself worthy of going to UAA. She, in 8th grade, had a 3.25 GPA for her first semester of college when there. And I think it's a travesty, and you're not providing a good future when our kids are supposed to be the future. You want them all to be 90% by 2020 by not allowing freshmen and sophomores into the Alaska Middle School College or accepting them into a local high school because they're choosing an alternative high school to make sure that they are properly prepared into this world, I don't think it's correct.
And the other portion is we've had parents that were getting calls saying that their students were unexcused, even though when they went to the schools they had been disenrolled from ASD. And they've been blatantly told that you cannot be participating with ANSEP and ASD. There is no dual enrollment. So that is very heartbreaking when your child is trying to achieve their goals to become an engineer or to become a veterinarian or a marine biologist, and they are told that they cannot do this because they are trying to take college courses as a freshman and as a sophomore, when they have completed the same scores as incoming freshmen and as incoming other college students. They've taken the same placement tests.
Madam President, just a point of order. Could we please have witnesses that hadn't prior signed up just spell their last names so the secretary could get them accurate? Even when you think you know what it is, sometimes they're spelled differently, and it would really be good for the record to establish that.
Malchoff.
Your first name, I'm sorry.
Oh, Kamala, Camilla.
Thank you, Mr. Donley.
And Sarah, do you have an H in your name? Or no?
Yes, I do. It's S-A-R-A-H, last name Brown, B-O-R-W-N.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Bishop?
Thank you, Madam President. We are, as the first day, I just decided to share about first days and the beginning of this school year. And I would like to share that this school year really started with the majority of staff coming back to work last Wednesday. So although students were here today, last Wednesday was a day to work in classrooms. So it was derived at each school was different. Some of them had breakfast together, welcomed each other, did their items at their schools, but it was a school day and really a classroom day. On Thursday, which was the second day back, depending on whether they were elementary or secondary, our staff participated in the English Language Arts program if they were in elementary school. Steve Brown ran Alice with any new folks, retraining, did police, security, as well as we have, and I'd like to mention he's done an excellent job of really incorporating, we've been training people from around the state in Alice and really have been a leader in that, in the training here in ASD. So that occurred as well last Thursday. The trauma-informed practices was a secondary, middle and high school, which began the ACEs training similar to what we did in elementary school, but at the secondary level. And I did want to mention that the week prior, because of the call from Viona, that actually last year we presented really a full range safety plan that included suicide prevention and some additional training. So our teachers actually are getting more than just the 2 hours every 4 years. And we can do an update on that if you'd like. But we actually have moved forward. If you remember at the end of last year, our Diane Lemon and Kirsten presented that, Dr. Johnson. So I'm excited to say, yes, we're moving forward with that. And then many of our buildings on Monday and Tuesday came back early to do Capturing Kids' Hearts. And so we provided that at, I believe, East High. We did it for the 2 middle schools in the Eagle River Chugach area. And help me out, Wendler as well, and Whaley. So we now we have Clark, Begich, East, Bartlett, all Chugach Eagle River School secondary schools in Whaley. So those folks participated that additionally. So it was a week full of learning. So it was really a jazzed week last week, and many of you participated in some of those trainings. So I wanted to say thank you to our teachers, our staff that provided those, because it was a really great start. Today, speaking of starts, I just wanted to share the pictures for which our parents forwarded to us in regard to different things on the first day. Wonder Park had Bartlett and the Channel 2 Morning News there to greet them in a pep rally as the kids started. But these are just pictures from around the district of first days that our parents are sharing. They're sharing the best with us, and just wanted the board to see first day pictures that were posted on our social media that parents uploaded. So lots of fun first days, and many of you were out at schools and kind of saw the same thing, just the excitement, energy, and it was a good day. It was a really good day. Here's just some more. I think that little boy goes to Rikashula because he has an apple every year as he grows. One of the things, Bartlett High School started a specialized program called LINK, and only their freshmen started today with about 82 upperclassmen that worked on a student orientation and looked more like, I guess, a college orientation where they spent a lot of time moving about, and then the rest of their staff will start, or their students will start tomorrow. But that was highly successful, over 450 new freshmen at Bartlett. Yeah, he's standing on top of that. But lots of excitement. That's it. All right. So, and I do want to address, we don't usually provide any information in regard back and forth talk with public testimony, but I did want to share that ASD has been in work with ANZAP and actually their leader, Herb Schroeder, for over a year in providing a middle college opportunity. And it was determined by the University of Alaska that it would be 11th and 12th grade. And so we followed that wish by the General Counsel and created an 11th and 12th grade. At no time had we advertised 9th or 10th. We knew that going in. It was a struggle back and forth, but when we were able to agree with the university folks, they had asked us only to do 11th and 12th. So we did that, and we weren't notified till students started showing up that they were told to go register right at their school. So we are working with our staff and our Indian Ed to figure this out. I had a conversation today with University of Alaska, but we have partnerships through testing and safety with the University of Alaska as well as ANZAP, and we continue to work with them. So I really regret any kind of miscommunication to be sent directly out, but we actually don't have an agreement, and we need to do that first with the university. Primarily, they're concerned about student safety being on their main campus. As a full set. Individual students, however, can enroll with the university because that's the university structure. But in partnership with the school district, it's very clear in a memorandum of agreement that we have to get. So we have to sit back down and discuss what happened. But it was an absolute surprise to us in regard to 9th and 10th grade students. So we'll have to troubleshoot that. So thank you.
Is that everything? Dr. Bishop?
Yes. Yes, Madam President, thank you.
Okay. So at this time, we'll get reports on our committees, our board committees, and Deena Mitchell. Okay. If you'd like to go ahead and give your report.
Yeah, so we had a communications committee meeting on August 15th, and we spent the bulk of the time talking about what our legislative priorities, just starting to think about how to present to the legislature and what we might want to try to focus on. And we are going to have another meeting the third Wednesday in, it's on September 19th at 8:30 a.m.
Okay, and if we could get our report. My microphone turns off by itself. I think they're trying to tell me something.
Did I shut it off when I pressed the button? I don't know. We had a governance meeting on August 15th, and we reviewed some admin regulations, but we worked on our draft of when negotiations start, that board policy we're working on. So I thought it was really good. Everybody was a pretty collaborative process, and we're just trying to make it, you know, a good draft. And then we started talking on some, Member Donley's proposed for just some more patriotism related ones. So we just briefly touched on them, and we'll start discussing those at the next meeting. So.
And your next meeting is?
19th at 9:30.
Okay, thank you. And if we're ready for the consent agenda, at this time, do we have any members that would like to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Madam President?
Mr. Donley?
Yeah, I would request that item number 4, the March 19th, 2018 regular session minutes, be removed from the consent agenda and voted on separately.
Okay. And therefore, item 4, March 19th, 2018 regular session minutes have been asked to be removed. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. And at this time, we will vote on the consent agenda without that item being in there.
Okay. So the consent agenda consists of ASD memorandum number 008, the personnel report, March 19th, 28 work session and executive session minutes, April 2nd work session and executive session minutes, April 2nd, 2018 regular session minutes, April 16th, 2018 work session, executive session, and regular session minutes, May 7th, 2018 work session, executive session, and regular session minutes, May 21st work session, executive session, and regular session minutes, and June 4th work session, executive session, and regular session minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. At this time, we'll vote. So that passes with 5 yea and 2 not present. And then, Mr. Donley, if you'd like to make your change or whatever you need to do to...
Procedurally, should I move that item and then, because I'm going to seek to amend it? So at this time, I would move the adoption of item number 4 on the consent agenda, March 19th, 2018 regular session minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Yes.
Madam President, I would move to amend item number 4 to reflect that myself was on school board business in Washington, D.C. and excused from the meeting. I was attending the Council of Great City Schools legislative conference, and I called in for the afternoon work session, but it got pretty late in D.C.
Totally understandable. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And then we'll vote on that. Okay, and at this time, that motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present. One moment. So now we'll vote on the minutes as amended. Okay, and that motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present. Deena?
Oh, I'm sorry. The first item on the action, the first action item is to approve the expulsion of the student associated with ASD incident number 1266501 as discussed in executive session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we proceed to vote. That motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present. So procedures for agenda item testimony are as follows, and that's any action item memo is first introduced by the Vice President, and if seconded by another board member, I will open the floor for public testimony. If you signed up in advance or indicated you're interested in providing testimony, I will call you to come to the front table to speak. You have 3 minutes to talk, and you will see a timer on the screen to your left to monitor the time remaining and inform you of when you need to conclude. After all testimony closes, I will open the floor for board discussion, followed by the student board representative vote, who we are working on. We don't have one yet, but we should have one maybe next meeting. Before finally calling for the official vote, the voting results will be displayed on the screen. So if you're ready.
So the next item is to approve ASD Memorandum Number 019, Resolution in Support of Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders Awareness Day.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And at this time, I would ask, is there any public testimony? Okay. None. Is there any board discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is something that I know a little bit about, but I was at a back to school night last week and chatted with a couple of parents of a child who has FASD, and I learned so much that I didn't know already about when the risk factors are and how they don't fit a normal profile of children with disabilities. And the Beartooth is actually going to be showing a movie about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and I don't remember the exact date. It's coming up in September, so I would encourage people to think about attending that, and I think it's wonderful that we're having this because it's an important issue, particularly in Alaska.
Any other comments? Thank you, Deena. If we proceed to vote, please. That motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present.
Okay, the next item is ASD Memorandum Number 001, Alaska Department of Education and Early Development, Fiscal Year 2020 Capital Improvement Project Grant Applications.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any public comments on this action item? Okay, no public comments. Any board discussion? Okay, if we, yes, Mr. Donley.
Just really briefly, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. It's really important that we work on, as much as possible, having design-ready projects applied because they get an extra 20 points on the grading scale from the state. So I know the administration is very aware of that and going to attempt to do that. Thank you.
Appreciate that comment. Thank you. If the board would proceed to vote, please. That motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present.
Okay, next is ASD Memorandum Number 010, Acceptance of Formula Grant Award, Title VI Indian Education Supplemental.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any public discussion? Comments? Board discussion? Ms. Brown, would you come forward just and maybe talk a little bit about this grant, because I think as board members we don't always know exactly what some of these grants do and are for, and it would help just have a brief summary.
Thank you, President Marsett and School Board and Dr. Bishop. I think you need glasses, just to let you know. Some kind of button. It's pretty small. No, that's okay. I got it on now. So thank you. So Title VI Indian Education, just a little bit of history. We've been around since 1972. When the Nation at Risk report came out from President, who was it? No. Anyway, so the Nation report came out, and they found that Alaska Native and American Indian students were not doing well in our education system. In addition to that, our Alaska Native American Indian population, families were saying our kids are not doing well in education. So there was monies that were set aside, and they're actually trust responsibility from our nation to make sure that we're adhering to cultural, language, social, emotional, and academic, that our students are held and are able to practice these things in our schools. So fast forward it, we've been part of the law. If you remember, it used to be Indian Education Title VII, and we're actually Chapter 7 in NCLB. Now we have a new law, and we're actually Chapter 6 in ESSA. So that's where that comes from. Another point of, just to let you know, for the history part of it, we call it Title VI Indian Education because many people don't like to be called Indians here in Alaska, and that's what it's called in the law. So we just put in Title VI in the front of it so we can reference it that way instead of Indian Ed. So really now to the juicy stuff. We provide supplemental services to our students. We really focus on cultural responsive pedagogy, cultural responsive practices. We bring community members in, but we also include language, and we have academic standards that we're trying to meet as well. I believe that many of the services that we have, we just got done with our summer enrichment programs. One of the things, we had 3 different sites. There were over 700 students that participated. It's really well received. In addition to that, we had another camp that was Project Hala that had served 200 students, and again, that was really well received. One of the things that we're really working on, and I'm going to touch base with the family that's right behind me with ANCEP, is we have worked with ANCEP very hard and diligently for our middle school students so they can get tracked into the ANCEP track and continue on with their services to make sure that they're being the best that they can be. So our staff really helps with that. And so, for example, a couple of years ago, we weren't getting a lot of kids really applying from MERS. And I said, Mr. Perkins, what can we do to make sure that all of our students are well aware of this opportunity through ANCEP, because I know you also go into Diamond. So as a staff, we really worked well together, talking about cultural responsive practices to make sure that we were just not sending home a flyer or an email or a text to families, but we were actually having a cultural responsive communication, which is often face-to-face. So I had over 100 students that met us in the library, and we worked together to ask every student and empower every student to apply for ANCEP. So this is some of the work that my staff does, just creating opportunities of supplementing, not supplanting, but supplementing so that we can continue to engage and do the best that we can be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Do any board members have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Proceed to vote, please. And that motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present.
Okay, next is ASD Memorandum Number 020, approval of fund transfer to student nutrition for unpaid meal balances.
Second.
Thank you. Any public testimony, comments? Any board comments? Discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I thought we talked about this once a while back, but I'm just maybe a little bit fuzzy on remembering what there was some sort of attempt to try and collect or to get them to sign up for free and reduced meals. Is that part of what's happening?
Through the president, yes, all of the above. So we would like to encourage if students need a free meal to please sign up, because then it's reimbursable. But we talked to the board, and really our policy is that no children are turned away if they're hungry. And so in a lot of places, especially at the high school level, it's very difficult for students to follow through with that because of the implications maybe and the social implications that come with that. So we've determined as a board that we would, when we had asked them, we could have taken some other action towards that, but because of the de minimis amount, in accordance to our whole budget, it was to just use the transfer. But we continue to, when students continually as a habit, because there's a difference between forgetting your money and or to really encourage them to get the paperwork done. But if it isn't, we would cover. At the end of the year, we're just making a transfer. We'll still keep track of it to know where it is happening in which schools. But many of our schools for which this doesn't happen are community schools, so all lunches are free there. So, but I can, any more detail we could report now, or, but you're correct. We had a discussion this summer on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bishop. Is there any other board comments? Yes, Mr. Donley.
My understanding from the memorandum of explanation was these were debts that had made an attempt to collect and had been ruled to be unfeasible to collect on.
I believe you're correct. Okay, with that, if we could proceed to vote, please. That motion carries with 5 yeas and 2 not present. At this time, we'll move forward with our non-action items. Is there any item that a board member would like to pull for discussion? Okay, we'll move forward with a okay. Move. Okay, so if there's no dissension, we'll move forward. Is there any new business? Any board members with new business? There was something, if no one has anything, that I wanted to bring up in the work session, and we just ran out of time, so it's something I'm going to bring up here, and that's our muni contract with our heavy equipment. I would, if another board member would second it, I would like to see if that is in fact saving us money or if it's costing us money.
Second.
Okay. So I guess what we're asking, if the, Dr. Bishop, if you could provide us with that information.
Madam President, that certainly we can. And would you like it for a work session to review that, or a regular session?
I think a work session will be fine so that we can discuss that. I do know that shared services is very important to the school district and to the municipality, but there has to be, I don't want to do it at the cost of more than we can afford when we're looking at budget constraints during our, for our school district.
Okay.
And at this time, do any board members or administration have any comments? Oh, I forgot about public testimony, sorry. Do we have anybody else that would like to provide public testimony before we move on to our last? Okay, great, thank you. All right, now, board members and administration, if you have any comments or would just like to say anything.
Madam President, I would like to share that with the board that we'll do a report this Friday on our enrollment. We are slightly behind where we were at this point last year, so it does look like our enrollment might be behind. We have discovered at the secondary level that we do allow students to come in and get their schedule and they're going to classes without hitting that confirming their, having their parents confirm their address. So we're working with that, but we'll have an updated schedule. We watch it every day. We have moved staff around and appropriated additional staff because we have had areas where they have growth, but we also have had areas where they were under enrollment. So we'll provide a full report to the board in regard to that, because I know last year we fell a little bit under 700 students short. We have predicted about 200 under last year, but we're keeping a close eye, just to let you know. And in addition, I forgot to mention during the superintendent report, we have absolutely terrific artwork, and our first show is always our staff art exhibit. And so please, this evening, take a look, and we have talented employees here, and those are the exhibits from our fine arts department. And I want to thank those teachers for providing their art for us to enjoy. Thank you.
Any other board comments or like to share? Yes.
I just looked in that FASD movie at Bear Tucson the 17th of September. So the more we know about that, the better we can serve our students.
Yeah, and it's at 5:30 p.m. I think. I remembered the time, but not the date. Thank you.
Mr. Holleman?
Yes, I got the chance to chat with several groups of our staff this morning because they were just hanging out on the sidewalk in front of their schools. It's an interesting thing when they want to come out and make a statement and be back in their spot by the duty time when they're supposed to start. They have to come out from the workplace in order to do that, in order to go back in again on time. It's something that most industry probably doesn't grasp. But a lot of really positive energy for the first day of school, a lot of excitement. It was just neat to be able to get out, chat with people. Buses are on the road. I've already heard people complaining about traffic, so we're on.
Ms. Deena?
I'd like to echo that. I had some really nice conversations with principals and teachers this morning, and was at a high school and a middle school and a couple of elementary schools, and seeing the first graders through fifth graders lined up for their classrooms was just so exciting. And talking to a couple of kindergarten teachers, and some of the little new kindergartners were there with their older siblings and excited about starting up next week. And the teachers were pumped up and the students were excited, and it just is wonderful to remember what we're all here for. These wonderful young beings, and helping them blossom into, really wonderful adults.
I also had the opportunity to go out this morning, and it's like so exciting. I talked to all the kids, and there was one. I actually went in the office. There's one little boy sitting there, and it was his first day at College Gate. He had transferred from another school, and he was waiting for somebody to take him down. So we sat there and we talked, and he told me he was going in 6th grade, and he had been at 6 grade schools already. And I kind of shared my story of having been at 7 grade schools, and so we kind of talked a little bit, and I was fortunate enough to be able to walk him down to his classroom and introduce him to his new teacher. So that was really great. I enjoyed that. So if there's, Mr. Donley.
I'd like to make a suggestion to our IT folks that the public microphone, this little speak symbol is really vague, and I think we could replace it with some sort of like a larger indicator that that's the button to push for the public to speak.
And I think we're actually going to adjust that so that we can control those on and off and do a few different things. This is literally the first time through, and so I don't think that worked well, and so we'll work on that, and by next meeting we'll have it much smoother for sure. Thank you.
So that was you cutting me off. Okay. And Deena, you.
I'm sorry. This was one of the most exciting things this morning. When I was at Fairview Elementary, I was inside the building for the Pledge of Allegiance. All the kids stopped and said the pledge, and then they went right into a quiet minute to center themselves for the morning. And first graders were not fidgety and were quiet for that 1 minute. And I turned to the teacher next to me and I said, boy, I really needed that this morning. I was so impressed by how those kids just really knew what this was about. So it was neat to see that.
Yeah, just a final shout out to all our teachers, administrators, staff, TAs, custodial workers, everyone. Thank you for a successful first day. And with that, we will adjourn.